Well, welcome fans and foes, viewers and haters. I'm your cinema simpleton because these days even Hollywood can't fool an idiot. Alright, so I finally saw Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's been a while, I know. And I wanted to get this video up before Christmas because obviously things get a lot more, crazy around the holidays. And I still got a Christmas themed movie that I want to post a review up for. You're probably going to get that after Christmas. I know it's a bit redundant, but hey. It's all I can do right now. Okay, so with this movie, I had my doubts. Basically, 3 doubts, if you want to make that specific. 1. New director, Michael Apted. That usually is not a good sign. New director, whether it's... You could get Steven Spielberg, and it still does not mean that it's going to be a good third movie. When you get a new director, it is always a gamble. Third strike, or third risk. It's Fox, not Disney. I almost shivered when I heard that news, that Disney chucked the rights to Fox, 20th Century Fox, because they don't have a very good track record when it comes to stuff like this, fantasy movies. And 3, well, it's the third movie, and that usually is never a good sign. For a lot of franchises, they usually do cap it off around the third movie, even if it is, based on books, and that's kind of because you're sort of draining the audience's attention, and because, the third movie, you're trying to push the scales up a lot, and that usually does not work out as well as you hope. This is basically a story, it's kind of got a bit of a Pirates of the Caribbean feel to it, where they're searching for, 7 magic swords, or some, Arthurian medieval kind of classic story kind of thing. But the thing is, this really is, if you thought that Narnia before, the first 2 movies were cliche, Disney had cojones compared to Fox. Because at least there was some creativity and some originality to it. This is really, and I mean really, cliche. There's a lot of stuff to this plot. The plot's basically half-baked. I'm gonna say that right out. There's a lot of stuff where, they don't give a lot of depth to a lot of these story arcs. There's a lot of stuff that is not answered. And yeah, you're probably gonna say, always, oh, you're just not having a suspension of disbelief. You want answers to stuff that you don't need answers to. Well, here's a question that I never got an answer to. What is the villain? They never tell you that. Okay, they give you little hints. It's part of this island. It's a cloud. That's not an answer, people. That's telling me that's what it looks like. That's the appearance of it. That's not telling me what is it. Where did it come from? What does it want? Because they don't explain any of that. And I know that they're making this, it's not from the books, but basically, if you are a fan of the Narnia books, you're going to get a good handful of the stuff that you want to see from the books. But a lot of it is made up for the script. And yeah, with this, I know that it's a villain of their own creation, but there's no it's not a 3-dimensional villain. It's just, it's some emotion type based villain, is all I can really say without spoiling it. There's no real build up, I noticed, with getting us back into the magic or the fantasy of Narnia. Because they really just pop this stuff out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, I was in Narnia. Or, oh yeah, that painting's magic. Or, oh yeah, that's Caspian. It's just, there's no lead into this stuff. There's no, okay, this is a step-by-step journey into how we're getting back into Narnia. It just pops out of nowhere. And this movie basically expects you to know everything. So, yeah, you're kind of gonna not get a strong sense of nostalgia from this. It basically is just popping out of nowhere. Let's get to Eustace. I wanted to frigging strangle Eustace within the halfway point of this movie. The kid was so annoying. My folks were with me. Even my dad was he hated that kid. And even I told him, spoiler for future movies, he's in 2 more of them. The kid is just, I know that that's sort of the angle that they have with the character, that he's supposed to be this bratty, nerdy kind of kid, but there's the kind of bratty annoyingness if that's a word, to a character that you can at least have fun with, you're not having fun with this kid. You're anxious for him to get off the screen and for him to shut up, because he never does. The thing that I found a little ironic with this is Eustace pretty much sums up the whole feel of the movie. Because Eustace is the Pevensy's cousin, Lucian Edmonds. And when I came out of this movie, I said to a lot of people, would it be fitting, and I think it is fitting, to say that this felt like Narnia's lame cousin? Because that is what I got the impression of. This is like, they have the same quality or the same kind of idea behind it, but the impression that it leaves is not as strong as the first two movies. And yeah, it's because it's a different kind of story. There's no war, stuff like that. It's a search kind of story, but it's still, it doesn't give you the impression as the same as the previous two movies. It's going to leave a different impression. And the writing is really a big reason for that. The writing has a lot of corniness to it. There's a message behind it. There's a moral to be learned. And yeah, it's a good moral. And they have their moments in it, but it's just a very corny journey to get to that moral. One thing I will say about the regarding the book is that if you're a fan of sort of the message behind C.S. Lewis, the author of the books, his sort of Christian message to it, because that's one of the it's sort of the symbolism of Narnia and the literature that he does. If you're a fan of the his morals behind his work, I think you're gonna have you're gonna be happy with what you get here, because actually the one thing I noticed about Fox here is that Fox, for some reason, decided we're not gonna really, beat around the bush. We're gonna leave some stuff in there that really symbolizes what the whole Narnia thing's sort of what's sort of behind all of Narnia's literature. We're gonna bring that onto screen. Like I was saying before, it does have a bit of a Pirates of the Caribbean feel to it. And actually, I was mentioning to somebody when I came out of the theater, the music almost felt like ripped off. It feels almost identical in some of the, rhythms of the music. I was like, this sounds almost exactly like it. And the camera work here is a bit rockier, but that means that the action is a lot closer to, the aggressive and brutalness of it. The sets are also really good when it comes to their colorization. They pick some interesting places for some of the, backdrops of a scenery and stuff like that. The CGI, if you didn't like it from the trailer, you're not going to like it here, because there was not much. I couldn't tell any real difference. It's very cartoony. And you kind of are wishing for the good old Disney days with their CGI. The budget is obviously a lot more drier with this kind of studio. I don't know why that it's so more evident here. Maybe it's because the action is a lot more condensed. And what's happening in all these scenes, there's a lot more... You notice that there's a lot more space. Like, they're in these cities, and there's like probably 50 people at most in some of these scenes. And that's something that I just noticed that had a lot of, there's a lot of emptiness to it. It's still going to have a good kind of, like I was saying before, the message is going to deliver. It's a very cheesy, corny journey to get to that message, but it's going to deliver. So you will have some stuff to get out of this movie. But a lot of the things that I was expecting to go wrong with did go wrong with it. It's very kind of cliche. There's not a lot of imagination to the dialogue. The main message here is, like, it's sort of a story about fighting temptation and being content with who you are. And yeah, it's a bit of an after-school thing, but you know what? It still delivered. It had its moments. I will say that much about it. So rating, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. I think that it was sort of at 2, but then at the end, they kind of did boost the message up a little bit. It's just narrowly at 2.5 out of 5. One thing I will say to you, before you go see this movie, go watch Ghostbusters. I know it seems like a totally weird request, but trust me, go watch Ghostbusters. Even if you've seen Ghostbusters, go and watch it before you see this movie. I'm not going to tell you why, but trust me, it is worth it, because there is this scene towards the end of the movie that is almost identical, like word for frickin' word, of Ghostbusters, that I turned to my folks when I was watching it with them, and I whispered them the punchline to it. But it was hilarious, because it almost felt like it was ripping off Ghostbusters. That was the hilarious thing. And you're probably thinking, what in Narnia could possibly rip off Ghostbusters? Believe me, the payoff is just totally worth it.